I want to do this New York Times story. This is a story from 2 days ago in Assigned Media, written up by Evan Urquhart. And good work here, keeping on the way that the New York Times is covering trans-affirming care in this country. And it's been widely criticized at this point. Some of the New York Times' seeming propensity for granting a lot of credence to skeptics of gender-affirming care, particularly for minors, and doing so at a disproportionate rate that is not aligned with the scientific consensus on this front. And this was the latest example. Basically a profile or a deep dive into this woman named Jamie Reed by Azine Goriashi over at the New York Times. And this was the criticism that they laid out in Assigned Media here. In the New York Times this morning, August 23, 2023, reporter Azine Goriashi writes credulously about the wild, unproven allegations surrounding a St. Louis clinic that specializes in treating gender dysphoric youth. These are the allegations of Jamie Reed, a former clinic employee who has become an activist opposing all medical treatment for gender dysphoria in children, with some statements suggesting that she even opposes treatment for adults. We have a clip of that. We'll play that in a little bit. Or maybe we could just play that now. This is her. This is the woman, Jamie Reed, who has also been written about in Barry Weiss's outfit, The Free Press, as a brave whistleblower on this front, despite the fact that many of her claims have been discredited. This is an example of what she believes.
It's almost out of my scope. So I have a master's degree in clinical research management. And the one thing I can say from my scope is that in clinical research and research that we do, there are different levels of research before you roll it out to human research studies. And there are things that you have to do first before you try it in humans. And just knowing what I know about clinical research, I think that we need a moratorium and we need to go back to square one. And square one in drug studies is in animals. But I think we need to go all the way back to research at square one before we move back into anything to do with children, humans. We're not there.
So that's her saying, and by the way, we'll get into what her actual role was at this clinic, but that's her saying that we should go back to square one for all gender-affirming drugs and all gender-affirming care, not just in children's, as she initially claimed was her objection. And that was, how long ago was that interview? February?
February of this year, yeah.
Okay, and since then, there have been many debunkings of her claims. Yeah. She has been discredited in a variety of ways. And yet in August 2023, it's time to do another piece on her in the New York Times. Goriashi manages the seemingly impossible, combining examples of her main source's repeated lies and no evidence of wrongdoing on the part clinic into an article structured to heavily imply Reed's concerns were genuine and warranted, in spite of the Times' own reporting on the case. Can we put the article back up here? An early paragraph, which hints at corroboration for some of Reed's allegations the article never produces, sets this bizarre tone. Some of Miss Reed's claims could not be confirmed, and at least one included factual inaccuracies. But others, which is doing a lot, others were corroborated, offering a rare glimpse into one of the 100 or so clinics in the United States that have been at the center of an intensifying fight over transgender rights. Okay, just pause it for a second. You want a glimpse into any of those clinics? Just ask anybody that works there that isn't discrediting the work there.
The subject is extremely unreliable, and it could almost be described as a pathological liar. But there are things to be gleaned from her testimony to me. Yeah,
I mean, this is incredible here. You got to wonder what the editorial choices are that are leading to this bias on this front. Jamie Reed alleged numerous things in her essay for the Free Press and in the affidavit she provided to the Republican Attorney General of Missouri. And just like the local St. Louis reporters who first investigated the story, the Times found many of the allegations were untrue. But unlike other stories covering these allegations, the Times downplays the falsehoods and seeks to make a case that despite Reed's lies, there's something to be taken seriously in her attacks on a highly regarded university-linked clinic serving transgender youth. By the way, in that St. Louis Today article, parents spoke to them and were like, no, actually, not what she's saying is not true. I really appreciated the clinic and their work. And also, she was a case manager. Her role, essentially, was setting up appointments, connecting them with like other services outside of the clinic, and mostly intake and things like that. She was not intimately involved in the care of these kids. One allegation of Reed's was that the St. Louis clinic failed to inform patients or their parents of the risks associated with treatments such as puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. Following in the footsteps of other reporters who examined this claim months ago, Goriashi finds that this was an outright lie. I just want to repeat that. One key allegation of Reed's was that the St. Louis clinic failed to inform patients of the risk, blah, blah, blah. Following in the footsteps of other reporters who examined this claim months ago, Goriashi finds this was an outright lie. So this is the one part of the article where they do look into the fact that this alleged whistleblower is a total liar, but the piece continues and then takes the rest of the claim seriously. She writes, Reed's affidavit claimed that the clinic's doctors did not inform patients or children of the serious side effects of puberty blockers and hormones, but emails show that Miss Reed herself provided parents with flyers outlining possible risks. The Times also found new evidence of a false claim. Reed's affidavit describes a patient who was harmed by calitamide, a drug that blocks testosterone. In the Times' first piece on Reed's allegations, this anecdote stood out. We looked into the data on calitamide and found that liver toxicity is such a rare side effect with only individual case histories and no statistical studies documenting it as a rare adverse response. Goriashi located the mother of this patient who described a completely different situation than what Reed alleged. Her daughter had been on bicaltuamide for a year, and the liver symptoms showed up only after the young patient also contracted COVID.
So COVID denial here.
Yeah, and took a second drug which also carried risk of liver problems. If that's not enough, the mother also provided emails directly contradicting Reed's description of how she had responded at the time. We'll just skip ahead slightly here. Because that's just like the part where they describe how they were able to prove that falsehood. But somehow, despite these major questions about Reed's reliability, Goriashi largely seems to take Reed at face value, portraying her as a former supporter of gender-affirming care who began to question it due to what she saw at the clinic, rather than as an unreliable source who has lied or stretched the truth again and again, and whose descriptions of everything, particularly her own motives, should therefore rightly be suspect. While the Times highlights these two key places where Reed seems to have lied and or presented information that did not turn out to be true, the story avoids some notable additional examples of times Reed seems to have contradicted herself or provided information that was untrue. The Times never mentions Reed's wild, totally evidence-free claim that children in St. Louis identified as inanimate objects. The only example of this Reed has ever given was a child who referenced being an attack helicopter. I mean,
this was all in the Barry Weiss thing when this originally came out, and people immediately saw that, oh, this person is being taken for a ride, and that was the specific thing that made people look into it and realize that the rest of it was bullshit.
Yeah,
That's literally, as she acknowledges, it's literally like a shitpost Imgur meme.
Something Reed later admitted she knew was a reference to an internet joke, despite relating it as if it were a belief about their gender a real child held. Yeah,
liars.
I could go through this, and you should probably read the assigned media piece in general. But like, I'm honestly a little bit baffled that the Times is continuing to go down this path. They've faced a lot of criticism on this front, and the Barry Weiss reporting on this particular whistleblower has faced immense criticism, and that was back at the start of this year, and they're rehashing the same freak for August? They have an agenda.
Yeah, New York Times editorial, or not the editorial, the actual like people who run the newspaper there, they absolutely have bad politics on this. And the only thing that's surprising to me about it is that they couldn't come up with any kind of new sort of expert whistleblower and had to use an already disgraced one.
Yeah.
Like, but with all the might of the New York Times and all the reporting power, it's to go back for leftovers of somebody who's already been proven to be a fucking liar. That's what's surprising, I think, to me about it.
And how they worked backwards from their desire to believe her too, because even the most reporting, when you have a source that has shown to not be honest about a variety of things, and not just random things like what their weight is, but things related to the story that you're ostensibly uncovering here, you might want to think twice about having that person be the central plank of your article. But no. WTF Cody, there is no legal age limit for breast augmentation, so that's fine. People can enhance the aspects of children when it conforms to their own gender bias, but no the hormones or anything that could help their child survive. Because if a kid is dead from suicide, I guess none of the side effects matter in the long run anyway. Yeah. Phineas and Herb, the New York Times is publishing Ann Coulter. They can't surprise me.
The most important thing to remember about the New York Times is that whatever the young guy who took over from his dad, Salzburger or whatever the fuck, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Literally said in like 2017, like, I think we believe in capitalism here.
Right.
Yeah, I think we pretty much all believe in capitalism.